In the newer Pokemon games, no matter what, every Pokemon has its niche. If it has low stats, it usually has a great move pool or a fantastic ability to make up for it. In Generation 1 though, that wasn't the case. Not all Pokemon were created equal. They were Pokedex fillers, as we call it, meant to be sidelined the moment you find something better. Some of those stronger Pokemon can single-handedly sweep the Elite Four, earning them a high spot on the Nuzlocke tier list by Nuzlocke University. And then the Pokemon at the bottom struggle to be an answer to a single Pokemon in the Elite Four, much less sweeping a member on their own. As such, they don't get the attention they deserve. But today, they're all I'm using. I'm on a mission to Nuzlocke one game from every generation of Pokemon, each game having a unique rule set for that region. And for Kanto, I'm doing a Trash Lock. Fire Red and Leaf Green are often considered one of the easiest games to Nuzlocke, so to make it more interesting, I aimed to cut off the top half of Pokemon in the region. There's a lot of ways to judge strength in a Pokemon game, but to keep it simple, we're going to look at base stat totals. And to cut off exactly 75 of 151 Pokemon, we can't use anything with a base stat total over 405. Leaving us to only use pre-evolutions or Pokemon that are just that bad. And this will be on top of hardcore Nuzlocke rules. We can only catch the first Pokemon we encounter on a route. If it's knocked out, it's gone for good, and then we can't use any items in battle, and we're limited to the highest level of the next gym leader's Pokemon. If our first encounter is a Pokemon with a higher base stat total than 405, we can't catch it, and we miss out on the encounter for that route entirely. Those are the rules, let's start the run. Okay, bop, bop, bop. Let's get started. Our first major choice is choosing our starter, which has changed a bit knowing that we can't use their final forms. Ivysaur and Wartortle are just weaker versions of their evolved forms, but Charmeleon never even gets the flying type. When all is said and done, I choose Squirtle. Bulbasaur is usually the best choice here, but I'm never going to get an opportunity to use the bulk of Venusaur. And on the flip side, I would prefer our rival have Venusaur. Our first fight with our rival finishes without any major incidents, and then it's on to catching our first few encounters. Route 1 is a Pidgey, which is pretty nice because we are allowed to evolve it into Pidgeotto, just not Pidgeot. Route 22 gives us a Spearow, which makes us miss out on the Mankey encounter, which I'm not too hurt by because we wouldn't be able to evolve it anyway. It wouldn't be useful for Misty, so that's fine. Route 2 gives us Rattata, which is nice if only to prevent us from having to deal with its encounter later on. I am playing with Dupe's Claws, so if I encounter a Pokemon that I've already caught, I'm not allowed to catch it, but I can reroll my encounter. The Viridian Forest encounter is the first one that really matters, since both Caterpie and Weedle are some of the very few Pokemon I'm allowed to evolve fully, and Pikachu would actually be a hindrance here. Luckily, I end up getting a Caterpie, giving us a Butterfree to work with already. With that, it's on to the first gym. Y'all wanna see something crazy? They don't teach you that in school. There's not really much to say here. If you choose either Squirtle or Bulbasaur, you can just one-shot both of Brock's Pokemon. Before leaving Pewter City, I actually find out this is the first place you can buy repels, which is huge because it'll allow us to manipulate our encounter for later areas. With the level cap now at 22, we can evolve Squirtle into Wartortle, one of the highest base stat total Pokemon we can even get, sitting right on the line of 405. On Route 3, our encounter is a Mankey. I don't really see this doing much. In Mount Moon though, before going in, I activate a Repel. This is to ensure that I can get to Basement Floor 1 without encountering any Pokemon, because there, I can get a 100% encounter for Paris. Paris actually does get something to offset its low stats, and that's the move Spore, the only 100% accurate sleep move in the game. And to top that off, we are allowed to evolve it into Parasect. Not only one of the bulkiest Pokemon we can get, but one of the highest attack stats as well. Unfortunately, that doesn't help with the abysmal Bug Grass type, which we're just gonna have to play around. Later on in the cave, we're allowed to choose between the two fossils. I did choose the Helix fossil. I kind of regret that in the future, but we'll get into that when it happens. Now, lucky us, there's only 4 Pokemon that can be found on Route 4, 3 of which we've already caught, leaving just Ekans. I wanted Intimidate for its ability, obviously a great ability, but unfortunately it didn't have it. Oh, whoops. Well, I'm glad it wasn't Intimidate. Then again, if it was Intimidate, probably wouldn't have knocked it out, huh? It's really his fault when you think about it. Now that we're in Celadon City, we have 2 choices on what to do. We could go north and fight our rival, or we can go ahead and fight Misty, which would raise our level cap, which I would prefer. I go ahead and evolve my Pidgey into Pidgeotto and get the party started. This is the first fight of the game that can really be dangerous. I brought Paris because it's one of our only resistances to water, but it also doesn't have a grass type move yet, so it's kinda useless offensively. After chipping down Staryu with a couple of gusts, my plan is to go into Paris so that I can knock it out with Leech Life, so that I can then start out on Starmie knowing I can survive a hit and inflict it with some sort of status. I forgot about healing items though. So now Paris is in on a full HP Staryu, who actually doesn't have the psychic typing yet, I didn't actually know, so it's not weak to Leech Life. Luckily, Staryu just can't do enough damage to us, so we can outlast it with Poison Powder. And then out comes the Starmie. This is the first Pokemon we're facing with a base stat total over 405. So no matter what, we can't match this power. Luckily, Starmie doesn't have any psychic type attacks, so it has to rely on Swift to damage Paris. I tried to go for a similar strategy I used on Staryu, but I missed the Poison Powder. And things just start to snowball from here. I swapped to Pidgeotto, who I thought could take a little more damage, but okay, all right. Skylar, I don't know if you're living this. Okay, all right, awesome. Of all the Pokemon on my team, I would have preferred it being Pidgeotto going down, but that's still not great. That at least allows us to switch in Butterfree for free, who can then hit a nearly 100% accurate Poison Powder thanks to its ability Compound Eyes. And now we just need to stall. Oh, thank goodness. Oh, thank goodness. That could have gone really badly. And this taught me the value of bringing a full team of 6 no matter what, even if they just swap in to delay turns. Skylar 2 comes in to take the position of Skylar 1, and this is our first instance of having to cancel an evolution, as Fearow is well above 405, so get used to this. And now we take on our rival to head north, but thanks to our new level cap of 24, it's not an issue. There is a bit of strategy though here. I can't just play at my level cap because there's tons of required fights before the next gym. And if I overlevel one of my Pokemon, I'm not allowed to use them, so I'm trying to prevent that as much as I can. Up on Route 24, I can get another encounter. This time it's a Weedle. Just like Caterpie, I'm allowed to evolve it all the way up to Beedrill, so this will be an asset. I work my way through Route 25 and grab the ticket for the SS Hand. Before I leave though, I want to get my encounter. What I do here is I lead with a Pokemon at level 14 so that it guarantees there's only one Pokemon that I can encounter here, Oddish, who will basically just be my stand-in Venusaur. You might be wondering why not go for Abra. Yes, it is one of the better Pokemon I can use, but it has Teleport, and if it teleports away, that wastes my encounter entirely, so I'm just gonna wait until later to try and get it. And yes, I can evolve Oddish into Gloom. In Route 5, there's only one encounter we haven't caught before, and that's Meowth. Can't evolve it, but it's a little better than Rattata, so I'll take it. On Route 6, there's actually nothing we can encounter for now that we haven't caught before, so we just gotta move on. This is a pretty common issue in Kanto. There's so few Pokemon, but so many routes. And since we've cut off half of the Pokedex, there's so many encounters we're not allowed to get, so this is gonna happen a lot. Ooh, Raticate. That's a little scary. Ooh. Yeah, in this run, even Raticate is a threat. It has a stat total over 405, and especially this Raticate, which is like 8 levels under where you're normally allowed to evolve it. Quite the threat. I'm headed to Diglett Cave to hopefully catch myself a Diglett. If I encounter the 5% Doug Trio, I'm not allowed to catch it, and I'm locked out of this encounter. Luckily, I do find one, and I'm able to snag it. Paired with another encounter on Route 11, Drowsy. Now this was my second chance to get an Intimidate Ekans, but Drowsy is great. Psychic types are huge in this game because there's so many poison types. It's the main type of Team Rocket. There's a gym that uses poison types. It's the type of an entire Elite Four member. And then there's no dark types in the region to counter it, so Drowsy will probably be a mainstay. On my way back though, I got caught by an optional trainer. Okay, we swapped that out. That's what we do. Okay, definitely don't want that up front. Oh! I didn't think it was that low. Oh no! Already, our second death, completely preventable this time. Our first victim to the speed up button. And this loss is actually bigger than you know. My plan for the Spearow was to trade it for a Farfetch'd in Vermilion City, one of the highest base stat total flying types we can get. And that's huge because our rival's ace is a grass type. but now that plan's out the window. I'm not allowed to trade them if they die. Speaking of our rival, we have another fight with him on the SS Anne, and this is where I reveal to you, this isn't my first run. My first run wiped to this rival fight. Yes, his Pokemon are low leveled, but they are evolved and they are threats. The biggest issue was I chose Bulbasaur, which gives him a Charmeleon. And at this point in the game, outside of Wartortle, there's no good water types we could have. So he was free to sweep. Hopefully this time it goes differently. I've brought 3 separate counters to that Ivysaur, so it shouldn't give us any issues. Drowsy's able to take out the Pidgeotto, but it's left at low HP, so we have to swap it out or else it'll get knocked out. And in comes the Raticate. I come out with Diglett thinking it can outspeed, tank a hit, and knock out Raticate in 2 hits. But this Raticate comes packing Hyper Fang. So not only is this Raticate a higher base stat total than anything we can get, it's evolved 8 levels early, but it also gets an 80 base power stab normal type move at level 16. Raticate sees a kill with quick attack here, so luckily Gloom can come in without taking a Hyper Fang, and I can put it to sleep. I was hoping I could knock it out before it wakes up, but we get it in the red and then it starts Hyper Fanging again. I take another Hyper Fang. I eat it up. I don't eat it up. Okay. Yeah, it's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt no matter who it hits. Oh my God. It has a chance to flinch? Y'all, this ain't good. No way! No. No. Okay, I outspeed. Oh, I should have swapped to Shelby first. So after all of that, that baits out Ivysaur early. Beedrill can come in, quad resisting any grass type attacks it has, but unfortunately this Ivysaur can use the same strategy that makes it so strong against us, leech seeding and sleep powdering us. I swap out to Shelby, who can hopefully take a couple of hits. We gotta flinch. We just have to keep flinching here, that's all I can do. I can live another Vine Whip. As long as he doesn't heal. Okay. Okay. Diglett can come in and outspeed for a guaranteed kill. And after all of that, his biggest threat comes out, Kadabra. Luckily, we can outspeed and a Dig should be able to knock it out. It has paper thin physical defenses. Now we one-shot, right? No way it takes this. What? It crits, just because it'd be funny. Drowsy can come in, tank a hit, and finish Kadabra off. That was a massacre. 4 Pokemon lost to 1 fight. If I want to beat this run, I have to heavily reflect on what went wrong, and then make changes to my gameplay to make sure it never happens again. First off, I think I'm playing too loose with the level cap. I'm very afraid that I'm going to overlevel, but at least if I overlevel, I get that Pokemon back after I raise the level cap again. Here, I kept my Pokemon 2 levels under the level cap when it really wasn't necessary. Second, if there's a move effect that I'm not 100% sure about, I'm going to look it up. Hyper Fang is not a common move, so I just did not know it had a chance to flinch. And that's probably what kickstarted the snowball effect of my entire team getting knocked out. And third, there's one last one, and it's the hardest because of the way this playthrough is, critical hits. When it comes down to it, there's no way I'm always going to be able to play around the crit because my defensive stats are just so low. Unless I resist a move or have a particularly bulky Pokemon, chances are most of my Pokemon will be at least 2-shot by most of the opponent's Pokemon. And I think the best way of getting around that is just more carefully choosing our team members to better counter the opponent. And God forbid, doing a damage calc here or there. Well, now that I don't need to worry about overleveling, I can evolve my Paras into Parasect at level 24. Yes, that would have made a huge difference in the last fight, you don't need to tell me. So that leads us to Lieutenant Surge, who we no longer have a Diglett to counter. And here I can put into practice some of my new strategies. Mankey gets a time to shine here. I know that Dig doesn't one-shot Voltorb, but I use it anyway to bait out Lieutenant Surge's heals so he can't use them on Raichu. Mankey can then finish off Voltorb with a low kick, and Sonic Boom can't crit, so we're not risking a death there. Pikachu is outsped in one shot, so it's not an issue. Then for Raichu, I swapped to Parasect, which can absolutely eat up its shockwaves. Raichu starts going for double teams, so I Poison Powder it so I don't have to rely on less accurate moves later on in the fight. I know that Lieutenant Surge has a full heal, so I'm going to keep Poison Powdering it to make sure it sticks. And now we simply have to survive until it ticks down. It's fine. Yeah, so we survive a crit. Jeez. And that is a deathless fight. Maybe a little risk from a damage range crit, but whatever. On Route 9, I once again have a chance for an Intimidate Ekans. No dice, but I catch it anyway. Route 10 has a very important encounter, Voltorb. Under my rules, this is the second fastest Pokemon I can catch, and being able to reliably go first is huge. Using Repels in Dark Cave, I can guarantee that I either get a Machop or a Geodude. I'm hoping for a Geodude because I have no other rock types, but no such luck. Luckily, Machop's another Pokemon that we're allowed to evolve, and it even gets the Guts ability, which we might be able to take advantage of later. Thanks to all the Pokemon we caught before, Route 8 gives us a guaranteed Growlithe, which is another chance at an Intimidate Pokemon that I don't get, but that's fine. Fire types are pretty rare, so I'll take anything I can get. Finally, we reach Celadon City. This is where we get our biggest power boost for a couple of reasons. First, between Eevee and the game corners, we have our choice of plenty of Pokemon that we are allowed to use. And while we may be limited in base stats, we're not limited by strong moves, and in the game corner, you can buy as many as you have the patience to grind out. Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, Flamethrower, and Shadow Ball are all now freely under our command. And as for my choice of Pokemon, I go for Abra. Normally catching it in the wild is a huge pain because it can teleport away, but here, we just get it. Giving us Kadabra, undoubtedly the best Pokemon we're allowed to use at 405 base stat total. On top of that, Parasect is allowed to hit a level where he can finally learn Spore, so we're sitting pretty. Next up is Erika's gym, and against the lead Victory Bell, I planned to risk the Growlithe to a critical hit Acid, but I didn't have to worry about it because Flamethrower gets the burn and ends Victory Bell in one turn, and after that, nothing is a threat. Vileplume can take a Flamethrower, but its attacking stats are much lower than Victory Bell's, so it doesn't really have a chance of knocking us out. A fight entirely won thanks to our access to these new powerful moves. At this point in Fire Red and Leaf Green, something weird happens. Our level cap goes all the way up to 43. Meanwhile, all the regular trainers are nowhere near that level, so we just wipe them all. Clearing the Rocket Hideout is a piece of cake, and I have my choice of whether to go for Koga or Sabrina next. Personally, I like to go for Koga. There's a lot of encounters between here and there, and it gives us access to the move Fly, which just makes things easier. My next encounter is in Lavender Tower, and by using a Repel, I can guarantee that I either get a Ghastly or a Haunter. The only other encounter here is Cubone, which even if I was allowed to evolve it, it's not that good. I end up grabbing a Haunter, which, like Kadabra, is one of the best Pokemon we can get. In fact, it's basically just a Ghost Poison type version of Kadabra. Incredibly fast and incredibly powerful moves. I choose to take Route 12 down to Fuchsia City, and unfortunately, our encounter is taken up by a Snorlax that we're required to fight, but we're not allowed to catch. After that, we can grab the Super Rod. If you're wondering why I didn't grab the old Rod, it's because we can only catch Magikarp with it, which is a useless encounter for us. Then I can run down to Route 13 and fish up a Horsey. This is huge because not only is it the first water type I've been able to catch since Squirtle, but it also comes with the ability Swift Swim. See, a big part of this run going forward, since we are limited to 405 base stat total, is faking that we have a higher base stat total than that. And this can be accomplished in many ways, such as heading into Koga's fight and then outspeeding and one-shotting everything, making your defenses and HP stat not matter in the slightest. Yeah, that didn't feel good. Unlike the entire rest of this run, I didn't have to make any strategy, I didn't have to risk any knockouts, I just win because of this Pokemon. And it's because of this fight that I ultimately make the decision to ban Kadabra, and by extension, Haunter. Even in a regular Nuzlocke of Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, these two Pokemon end up on most people's teams because they're just that powerful, even unevolved. Because low stats don't matter if everything dies anyway. I don't find that interesting, so they're out. Now this does have the side effect of me also losing out on any other encounter in Celadon City, like Porygon, which is another fully evolved Pokemon that we're allowed to use, but we'll never know. call it a tax for me sweeping this last gym with Kadabra. From there, we can head on to the Safari Zone. There's a ton of encounters here that I don't want because they're all too strong for me to use. So I'm just hoping for anything I'm allowed to catch, and I get Doduo. And it's caught in the first ball, which is good because it probably would have ran away otherwise. I also make sure to grab a lot of the optional TMs here because there's a lot of good ones, including of course Surf, the reason we came here in the first place. With Surf, I can guarantee myself a Psyduck in Fuchsia City, which I'm going to evolve into a Golduck, not to use, but to trade. I think I'm allowed to do that. On Route 18, we can trade it for a Lickitung. You know, the guy chilling at the bottom of every tier list for Fire Red and Leaf Green Nuzlocke. Yeah, him. These stats may look bad to anyone else, but to me, that's some beautiful bulk. Before we can tackle our next gym, we have to go to Silphco to take on Giovanni. The dungeon itself isn't an issue. I'm always surprised at how short it is when you actually know where to go. But eventually we hit our first roadblock, our rival. While he's not quite at our level cap, it's still a pretty dangerous fight. I lead with Voltorb, which can eat up anything Pidgeot can dish out, and two-shots it. Since nothing on Blue's team has a super effective attack on Voltorb, Gyarados switches in because it's simply the next Pokemon in line to come out, with absolutely no regard to the fact that we just knock it out in one hit. That's right, I read the AI doc. I know every move they're gonna make before they know they're gonna make it. Next up is Growlithe, which we can throw our own Growlithe out at, and since we have Flash Fire, it can't use any of its stab moves, leaving it to only take down, allowing us to get the knockout with Bite. Next up is one of the most dangerous Pokemon in the game, Alakazam. We're gonna have to face quite a few of these, and every single one has absolutely no answer for Drowsy. Drowsy is especially bulky and resists any psychic type moves Alakazam can get, but you may have not known this, Drowsy's attack stat is higher than its special attack. Alakazam's defense is pitiful, and we can take advantage of it. That leaves Venusaur. For some reason, it got rid of Leech Seed, so its best way of dealing damage is Razor Leaf, and as I said before, Drowsy has a great special defense stat. On top of all of that, Venusaur tries to put us to sleep, but it can't because we have the ability Insomnia. Venusaur is easily brought down with Stab Psychics. This is what you can do when you study the fights ahead of time. Giovanni's up next. Compared to Blue, he's not that much of a threat. Most things here just get defeated by a Spore Stall from Parasect, with the exception of Kangaskhan. I start by putting her to sleep, but I have to swap out because I've already been leered. I risked a crit on Growlithe here to do a little bit of damage. I was kind of hoping for a burn here, but no luck. Back to Parasect to put it to sleep again, hopefully for a little longer this time, but it's another first turn wake up, risking another crit on Parasect. Lickitung's still sitting in the back of the party all healthy, and I know it can take a couple hits, so he comes in to finish it out. Might have seemed like a very risky fight, but remember, we only have 3 gyms to go. I already know what Pokemon I'm not bringing to the Elite Four, such as Growlithe, so I'm willing to risk them at this point. With Silphco taken down, we can finally challenge Sabrina, and you can probably guess who's going to be the star player here. As her lead Kadabra sets up a Future Sight, I knock it out immediately with a Shadow Ball. While we do have to deal with that later, the nice thing about Future Sight is it can't crit, so you always know what it's going to do. Venomoth comes out because it sees a super effective Leech Light, which Drowsy can take easily and knock out Venomoth and 2 Psychics. Next, Mr. Mime comes out as we take a Future Sight. This Mr. Mime is more meant to set up for Alakazam. It doesn't have anything to actually threaten me, so I just try to take it down as fast as I can. Then Mr. Mime baton passes a barrier over to Alakazam. I think we win. Yeah, Alakazam. Okay. Yeah, that crit mattered. Mr. Mime comes back out, critical hits with a Psybeam, but it doesn't matter because we're that bulky. Down goes the Mr. Mime. That is yet another gym leader sweep, which just shows you how much Drowsy shuts down all other psychic types. If we had faced another Drowsy in this fight, I don't know if we could have won. And that's all for Saffron City. We could take on the fighting type gym, but the reward isn't worth it. We're not allowed to use either Hitmonlee or Hitmonchan. Instead, I'd take a trip to clean up some of the encounters we haven't gotten yet. There's one encounter here I'm looking for specifically, but there's no way for me to cheese it. We just have to get lucky. Magnemite has a great defensive typing, being the only steel type we're allowed to use. There was a 40% chance for me to get Pikachu, Magneton, or Electabuzz, all of which would have ruined this encounter for me. So I'm very happy. Also, the Protect TM is here. Don't want to leave without that. With that, it's down to Cinnabar Island. My encounter for Route 21 is a guaranteed Tentacool. I don't have plans to use it, but it could be a nice backup. On Cinnabar Island, we can revive our Ammonite. So for this run, this is a very complicated Pokemon. Of course we can't evolve it, but it does also come with the Swift Swim ability. It's also the strongest Pokemon with access to Swift Swim. The issue is, it's so slow, it's still not going to outspeed much of anything, even in the rain. Now, if this was a Kabuto, that's a little faster. It could actually make use of Swift Swim and then use Rock-type Stab to knock out a couple of threats, but yeah, you know, didn't foresee that being an issue 1 hour into the run. The Pokemon Mansion is yet another encounter for us. Coughing. Okay, that's fine with me. Oh, I calced it out. Yes, the crit mattered. That is a full team of 6 dead. So, going into Blaine, I've only brought 1 Pokemon. And before I explain this, I have to say, this isn't my own strategy. This is Freezeye's strategy from his No Evolution Nuzlocke, and it's just too good of a strategy not to use. I did have to extensively test to make sure going in that nothing could go wrong, because if Horsey's stats were just a little lower, this wouldn't work. All you have to do is against the lead Growlithe, set up Rain Dance, you're going to take an attack. Just in case, we're holding a Rostberry because if this Fire Blast crits and burns, it can knock you out. So remember earlier when I talked about faking that we have higher stats than we actually do? Thanks to Swift Swim, in the rain, not only is Horsey's 60 base speed doubled, but while using water type attacks, its 70 special attack is doubled as well, allowing us to pretend we have a base stat total of 425. And thanks to those 2 stats being raised, there's not a single Pokemon in this gym that can outspeed us or survive a surf, allowing us to take the badge risk-free. Fun fact, Sevi Islands are completely optional, although there are a couple of encounters we could grab there, like Ponyta. There's not really anything that I'm particularly jazzed about. Before leaving, I go ahead and grab my encounter on Route 20. It's a Magikarp, so cool. There's absolutely nothing stopping us from going straight into the next gym, so we do. And I figured out you could just use the same strategy here. Only difference is, since nothing here has Roar, we don't need an empty party, and we just need to knock out the first Rhyhorn with Surf and then set up Rain so that it doesn't peter out by the end of the fight. That does cause us to take this Earthquake that I definitely damage calced out, don't worry about it. Everything else, outsped and one-shot. Now the only thing stopping us from taking on the Elite Four is one final fight with our rival. Unfortunately, this time the line isn't as clean. Instead of Voltorb, I need to use Magnemite, who, while it does one-shot the Pidgeot, it doesn't bait out Gyarados right after. Instead, Growlithe comes out. I choose Machoke to counter this because even if it does happen to get a burn, that only makes us stronger. Didn't need it though, planned on using a Revenge to knock out Growlithe in one hit, but it missed, so it was just an easy 2-hit knockout with no damage. Next up is Alakazam, once again, absolutely no threat to Drowsy. It can stack as many Calm Minds as it wants, doesn't do anything to my Shadow Ball damage in this game. And this time with no defense boost, this crit did not matter. Next, Rhyhorn comes out. We don't need to swap here, 2 Psychics can take it down safely. Gyarados comes out. You might think I'd want to swap out to Magnemite, but this is the one and only time the Gyarados comes packing Hydro Pump. Magnemite doesn't take that well, Lickitung does though. We're able to chip Gyarados down a bit, but we do get critically hit by a Hydro Pump, which puts us in range of another critical hit Hydro Pump, but I decide to risk it. After all, it's just a Lickitung, it's probably not useful after this point. But he takes it and knocks Gyarados out. Last up is the Venusaur. This isn't a threat at all. This is why I wanted to give Blue the Venusaur, because oddly enough, its moveset just gets worse and worse after every encounter. Now it doesn't even have Poison Powder or Sleep Powder, so its absolute only way of dealing damage is Razor Leaf. Parasect absolutely cleans that up. Well, now that I've worn out my Magikarp encounter, I am guaranteed to get a Poliwag on the way up to Victory Road. This is kind of just a last resort just in case I lose Horsey or something. It's just nice to have. We have one last encounter in Victory Road. Again, it would be nice to have Geodude. I'd even take Onix at this point because I have no rock types, but it's a Zubat, so I guess we take it. With that, we're at the Elite Four. I've learned a lot up to this point, enough to know that I can't just wing this. I need to make sure I have a plan for each and every Elite Four member. There's so much added difficulty here because I can't just sack a member off and keep playing. I need to make sure I have enough Pokemon through to the end to take on the champion. So if at all possible, I want to make lines that have no sacrifices. And before that, I want to grab everything I possibly can to prepare. A couple of extra TMs from the game corner, went to any move tutors that could be helpful, renamed my Horsey because I forgot to nickname it, gathered all of the health items this game is willing to give us, which is basically just berries and 2 leftovers, which is kind of nice. And finally, pre-statused a few of my Pokemon. After a few days of cooking, we're finally ready to move on. Here's the team I'm bringing in. Don't want to show you the movesets yet because it's a surprise. First up is Lorelei, who I had the most trouble figuring something out for. We lead Magnemite against her Dugong. A very low range Thunderbolt on Dugong here doesn't knock it out, but that's okay because we get a second chance after a heal. Next up is Cloyster. We can completely wall this thing because its only attacking move is Dive. If I see it readying it up, I can use Protect and take no damage. This infinite stall time first allows me to heal with leftovers, but also allows me to wait out hail turns, because I have Pokemon later down in the line that can't take that risk. I choose to go ahead and knock it out this first turn because I'm at a fine amount of HP, and I wanted to see if I could knock it out before it laid down spikes, but no luck there. Next up is Slowbro. I outspeed in one shot. I don't want to stall on it because it could start building up amnesias, which is bad for my Thunderbolts. Next is the Lapras, and here's where things get difficult. It can either attack or Confuse Ray here. It went for Confuse Ray, which is good, but I hit myself. I risk it for the biscuit. I go for a Thunder Wave against a Surf, tank the Surf, hit the Thunder Wave, and then we swap into Macho. No matter what Ice Beams I take, there's no chance of freeze since I'm burnt, and with the Guts boost, Karate Chop just knocks this thing out. Next up is Jinx, which required the most counterplay. First I swap to Lickitung. This isn't why he's paralyzed, but it does help with not being able to be frozen or put to sleep with Lovely Kiss. Took a crit, that's fine, that's why I have Citrus Berry to tank another Ice Punch, and hit Jinx with a Shadow Ball. This puts Jinx into healing range, giving me an opportunity to swap again into Drowsy. Drowsy's carrying a Lumberry to avoid any freezes. It can't be put to sleep because it has Insomnia, and it can take Jinx out with 2 Shadow Balls. That was probably the most dangerous fight we're gonna have. Next up is Bruno. You know it, you love it. We're using Rain Dance Swift Swim. Because I now outspeed every Pokemon Bruno has, he loves to go for Rock Tomb, which is great for me because that has a chance to miss, and even with a speed drop, I still outspeed everything. One Surf takes down the starting Onix. Hitmonchan takes half from a Surf, misses another Rock Tomb, and goes down to the second Surf. Then Hitmonlee comes out, and once again it is 2-shot by Surf, but it didn't. Oh, okay. Mega Kick hurts, but it's nothing we can't take. Unless it's a crit. Jesus Christ! Horsey goes down, and that's what I get, I guess. At the very least, that allows Butterfree to swap in. Butterfree can naturally outspeed Hitmonlee, hit it with an almost 100% accurate Sleep Powder, and start setting up Hardens on it, eventually finishing it off with a Psychic. Next up is Machamp, same deal as before, put it to sleep, start smacking it with Psychics. It never gets a chance to attack. It's fairly safe. Then comes out Onix number 2. Oh no, a Stab Rock type attack, right? Wrong. The only stab this Onix has are ground type moves, so we're completely safe. The Horsey loss is rough though. I was planning to use it on 2 of the 3 upcoming fights, so we'll have to figure something else out. What I didn't need Horsey for though was Agatha. This Gengar has the moves Shadow Punch, Toxic, Double Team, and Confuse Ray. It cannot use Shadow Punch on us because we are a normal type. It cannot use Toxic on us because we are paralyzed. So its only way of damaging us is using Confuse Ray. Except I'm lying because Lickitung has own tempo. This Gengar is perfectly countered by Lickitung specifically, allowing us to set up a substitute on us and use the best buffing move Lickitung has, Defense Curl. We're going all the way to +6 defense because Agatha only has 2 attacks that aren't physical, Bite and Bite, both of which are non-stab and used by Pokemon with absolutely atrocious special attack stats. So no matter what, they will not be able to outpace our healing from leftovers. The substitute is here for 3 reasons. Number 1, the only way Lickitung dies is to 3 critical hits in a row from a physical attack, unless the substitute eats it up. Number 2, this Arbok's Intimidate gets blocked, allowing us to easily defeat all the Pokemon coming after it. And number 3, the Haunter can't curse through it. So with everything accounted for, 1 by 1, Lickitung knocks out every single member of Agatha's team. This is the one and only clean sweep you're going to see in this Elite Four. As for Lance, I had to figure something out because I was planning on using Horsey here. Luckily, we have an out. Magnemite resists every single attack that Lance has on his team, except for Dragon Rage if you want to count that. And this lead Gyarados has the worst matchup of all into Magnemite thanks to it not having any water type moves. By Thunder Waving the Gyarados and stacking 6 double teams, we only have a 15% chance every turn of being attacked. And even when we are hit, it's a negligible amount of damage that we can heal off with leftovers, and we can even weave in protects if we need extra turns. Finally, we let Gyarados go with a single Thunderbolt. Thanks to Magnemite resisting literally every single attack from Lance, it baits straight down the line. So next up is Dragonair. Now this matchup is a little more complicated than it seems because we can't really paralyze Dragonair. Not only does it have Safeguard, which can nullify my Thunder Wave if I try to use it, but it also has Shed Skin, so even if we do paralyze it, it'll get rid of it in a turn or two. So the way to play is to start sending Thunderbolts while Dragonair misses 2 out of 3 attacks. Dragonair actually didn't go for Safeguard, so we were able to get a paralyzation on the first Thunderbolt, helping us out just a little bit. Dragonair number 1 goes down while we're still at nearly full HP. Dragonair number 2 is a little different because it has Thunder Wave, and I'd prefer not to be paralyzed. This Dragonair does opt to go for the Safeguard, giving us a free turn to attack. On our second Thunderbolt, it misses the Outrage, putting it into healing range. The third Thunderbolt comes out on the heal. On the next Thunderbolt, it hits the Outrage, and you can see how little this does. And unluckily, it hits a second Outrage in a row, going down to another Thunderbolt. That brings us to Dragonite, which is basically the exact same strategy, except now we both deal a little more damage to each other, it because it has a higher attack stat, and us because it has the flying type. There's a very long back and forth. Lance does save a second heal just for this Dragonite, so that makes it a little more annoying. Eventually, I get down to my last Thunderbolt, so I have to swap out to Lickitung, who absolutely eats up the Outrages and retaliates with an Ice Beam to knock it out. Last is Aerodactyl. Magnemite basically swaps into this for free and knocks it out with our last Thunderbolt. This leaves just the champion. All we've lost is Horsey up to this point, which I did want to have for Arcanine, but it's fine. So we do have a little bit of an advantage in this fight that we didn't have in all the others. We're allowed to sack Pokemon as much as we want. Given we have 1 Pokemon alive at the end, that's all we need. Another advantage, we've faced this team like 6 times already. We know what works and what doesn't work, so theoretically, we should know what to do. Let's see if that's how it works in practice. Just like before, Magnemite walls the lead Pidgeot and is able to Thunderbolt it down in 1 hit, which always baits out Arcanine thanks to its super effective Fire-type move. I let Magnemite go down to it so I can switch in Machoke for free. I'm slower anyway, so I can use Revenge to get a pretty big hit off here. Doesn't knock out, but that's fine. We don't need it to. Machoke has done his job. But then... And then I'm gonna Karate Chop. What? Why? The AI switches. I have no idea why. It should have seen that it can outspeed and knock me out, but instead they swap out to Alakazam. And while, yeah, it's nice to get a little bit of extra damage on Alakazam, I wasn't planning for this. And I'll still have to deal with Arcanine later instead of the guaranteed way I have to deal with it now. Well, you know the deal for Alakazam. Drowsy comes out, and this time I plan to set up on it. I start stacking Calm Minds. Alakazam's attacks are literally doing nothing. We're healing more on leftovers than it's dealing with Psychic, and we can knock it out with a few Shadow Balls. Next comes out Gyarados because it has Bite and it sees the super effective attack on us. If my plan had gone correctly, we wouldn't be seeing this Gyarados against Drowsy, but here we are. We're able to get a couple of Psychics off, but eventually we go down to a Future Sight that Alakazam laid a while ago. So looking at the team, this doesn't look good, but trust the process. Lickitung comes in, absolutely eats up this guaranteed Thrash, and responds with a Thunderbolt. Would have been a 2-hit kill from full HP, but whatever. Next up is Rhydon. We're just running down the line now. I send out 1 Ice Beam, retaliated by an Earthquake. From here, Rhydon's Earthquake is the only move that kills, so I know it's gonna go for it. I swap to Butterfree, it avoids the Earthquake, puts it to sleep, and as long as it stays asleep, stay asleep, good. It does. We could knock it out with another Ice Beam. Arcanine comes out. This is fine. Lickitung absolutely eats up a Flamethrower, knocks it out with Thunderbolt. This leaves the final matchup as Butterfree versus Venusaur. Like I told you, this Venusaur only gets worse. It has the absolute joke of a moveset of Sunny Day, Growth, Synthesis, and Solar Beam being its only attacking move. Meanwhile, we just barely 3-hit KO with Psychic. After blue uses a healing item, we take a solar beam, so we can see it's a 4-hit KO, maybe 3 hits with a high damage roll. And I remember something fun about Generation 3. Sleep Powder works on grass types. From there, it's all over. We can Gust to prevent blue from healing again, and Psychic to knock it out. Oh my god, I misplayed that so bad, and I still got the win. That's crazy. Look at this absolute team of misfits, bringing it home. That concludes the trash lock. Man, I'm going to be so excited to use fully evolved Pokemon again. I do want to give 2 shoutouts because without watching these 2 examples of similar-ish runs, I probably wouldn't have come close to doing this. First is Freeze Eye's Pokemon Fire Red, but I can't evolve. It was a much stricter rule set than mine, and showed me a couple of ways that certain enemies could be cheesed using the right strategy. Next is Flygon HG's Losers Only, where he was only allowed to use fully evolved Pokemon with base stat total of 400 or less. Specifically, there's a Porygon strategy he used in the Elite Four that inspired the way I used Lickitung in the last 3 fights. So if you enjoyed this one, keep an eye out for the next game I'm going to be nuzlocking, Heart Gold, with a very unique twist that I don't think anyone's done anything like. See you then, and good night.